Welcome to Unbelievable Stories. Today's story is full of shocking twists and real drama. Subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's dive in.
2 years ago, I found my wife, Nicole, was having an affair, which sparked a heated dispute that culminated with me packing my bags and leaving out. Of fact, my decision to leave was not motivated by the fight, rather, I refused to remain with a deceitful lady. Our marriage ended the moment she accepted another guy into her life. I booked into a hotel near my workplace. It was rather run down, but it would do until I found something more permanent. I placed the 2 bags I had packed in my room and headed to a local neighborhood pub, intending to get drunk and drown my sorrows. Walking would protect me from a DWI. The location I picked was quite vacant, owing to the fact that it was a Tuesday night. 2 couples sat at tables, while one elderly guy sat at the bar nursing a bottle of beer. I grabbed a booth on the far wall, away from everyone else. I was not in the mood for chat. The bored-looking waitress approached, and I requested a shot of Jack and a beer. By the end of my second round, ID had enough time to ponder. I realized that I could either sit around feeling sorry for myself or do what I always do and face the situation straight on. I was a house builder specialized in affluent homes at the height of the housing bubble. I'd always have 2 or 3 properties under construction at any one time, and when building issues developed, I realized that ignoring them would cost me money. With fresh resolution, I returned to the hotel for a restless night's sleep. To safeguard myself, the following morning I went to the bank and transferred all of our money from our joint accounts to one in my name solely. Next, I cancelled all of our shared credit cards, retaining just 2 in my name and the ones I had put up for my company. My last trip of the day was to see my lawyer about drawing up divorce documents. Michael was both a buddy and my lawyer, and although he specialized in real estate law, his wife, Hannah, a lawyer, and his partner, practiced family law. We got down to discuss the specifics after they both expressed their regret for the situation I had put myself in. I was given the standard spiel about how this was a community property state and Nicole would be entitled to half of everything, while I would be responsible for paying child support. I informed them I was fully aware of this, but there was no way I was going to alter my mind and go forward with the papers because of our daughter. I filed for divorce based on irreconcilable differences rather than infidelity. I had done well in business, and even if I had to give her half, I would still be well off. All I wanted was to be rid of a faithless wife. I slept better that night, knowing I was finally in control of the issue. It was Thursday evening, the second full day after I had packed my things and left, when I received a call from my 13-year-old daughter, Emily, informing me that she had not seen or heard from her mother since she returned home from school and that she was alone and hungry. Cursing my soon-to-be ex, I hopped in my pickup and drove home. I consoled my unhappy daughter before heading into the kitchen to prepare her some food. Under a magnet on the refrigerator, I discovered an envelope with my name in my wife's handwriting. As intrigued as I was to see what was inside, I threw it on the counter to read later while continuing to prepare supper for Emily. I returned to the kitchen only after we had dined, watched some TV, and put Emily to bed. I picked up the envelope and entered the den. I poured myself a shot of bourbon, drank it, and settled down to read whatever was inside. Nicole sent me a message in which she stated I was foolish for thinking I was going to load her with a kid to raise. It went on to say she was going and that I shouldn't bother searching for her. To say I was surprised would be an understatement. I realized ID never really knew the lady ID married. I couldn't comprehend how a mother could forsake her kid. I walked up to what had been our bedroom and saw that most of her clothing and personal belongings were vanished. I waited until the following morning to phone Michael and Hannah to discuss the new discovery and how it might influence my divorce proceedings with Nicole. Hannah urged me to wait until Monday and then accompany me to my wife's place of work. She'd have the divorce papers made up, and we could serve her there. The most difficult part was sitting down with Emily to discuss what was going on. She was already aware that her mother and I were having troubles since I had not been home for the previous 2 nights. I thought that being honest with her was the best option, and I informed her that her mother had left a letter stating that she was leaving. Aside from that, I had no idea when she would return, so I couldn't really address her queries. We made it through the weekend, and Monday morning, I served Emily breakfast and dropped her off at school. I traveled to Nicole's workplace and met up with Hannah. Together, we walked inside to see whether my wife was present. When Nicole's name was mentioned, we were sent to the Human Resources office, where we discovered that she and her employer had both resigned the previous Wednesday. I wasn't shocked when I discovered that the guy she was having an affair with was her employer. Her supervisor was naive enough to have a sexual connection with an employee under his control, but he was clever enough to recognize that if I raised the problem, he would lose his job for violating company policy banning fraternization between a management and an employee under their supervision. Hannah advised me, while outside in the parking lot, that it would be in my best interests to file a missing persons report with the police since she had been absent for more than 48 hours. They would be required to accept the report and, with any chance, locate her. She accompanied me to the police station, where a detective recorded my allegation that Nicole was gone. I told him the truth. I wanted to locate her so that I could serve her with divorce papers and explain why I was divorcing her. I showed him the message she had left and explained what we had discovered about her and her partner leaving their jobs. He asked whether I had an alibi for the Wednesday she was last seen, and I told him that I had spent the whole day at one of the homes I was constructing and that other contractors could confirm it. Finally, the officer informed me that if they found no evidence of foul play and she had gone on her own will, there wasn't much they could do. I then offered to buy Hannah lunch, so we contacted her husband and met at a nearby restaurant. We asked for a table that was somewhat secluded so we could converse. "So, Hannah, what does this do as far as the divorce if we can't find her to have her served?" I was thinking about. "What that means in this state is you are going to have to wait for a year before you can file on the grounds of abandonment." "I'm sorry, Daniel, but that's what the law states," Hannah told me. "The reason I wanted you to report her missing is so that we have an official report of when she left to document it. Other than that, if the police don't locate her, your only other option, if you want to pursue it, is to hire a private agency to try to track her down." "Well, I guess that gives me something to think about. I guess I'll wait until I hear from the police. Honestly, though, I don't know if I even want to know where she's gone, as I'm in no hurry to get married again, if ever. I guess waiting a year isn't that big of a deal as long as I don't have to deal with her." When I told Hannah I didn't want to marry again, I could see pity in her eyes. She reached over and stroked my hand. "Daniel, I know how tough this is on you, and I know you're hurting right now, but as your friend, please promise me that you're not going to cut yourself off from life. For now, my focus is on Emily. I'm sure she is even more shocked and hurt than I am. I have to be there for her." Michael and Hannah both nodded in agreement and informed me they were there for me and would assist in any way they could. After lunch, I stopped by one of my work sites to check on the progress before heading to Emily's school to wait for her to leave. As she left the building, I saw her gazing around almost frantically until she spotted my pickup, at which point she raced as quickly as she could. I walked out and she pushed herself into my arms. I could feel her trembling. "I was afraid you wouldn't be here," she sniffled, burying her face in my neck. "Oh, baby, I promise I'm not going anywhere," I said, squeezing her tightly. "Do you really promise?" she questioned, her huge brown eyes filled with sorrow. "Yes, honey, I really promise." I kissed her forehead and carried her around to the passenger side of the vehicle, seat-belted. "Bring her in." I cursed my wife again as I stepped around to come inside. On the way home, I persuaded Emily to tell me about her day at school. Emily would not allow me leave her sight once we arrived home. I tried my best to persuade her that I would not desert her. Despite this, she started to suffer nightmares and I waited to hear her sob in her sleep. I would race to her room, and when I woke her up, she would wrap her arms around me and hold on for dear life. When I asked her what she was dreaming about, she said that she was lost and couldn't locate her mother or me. My office manager was the largest saving grace for me at the time. I recruited Jennifer to assist me with the many routine elements of my job, such as submitting permits and arranging for inspections, so that I could focus on the more difficult jobs. Since then, I've learned to completely depend on her. She was now responsible for keeping the subcontractors on time, purchasing and monitoring goods, and completing all of the appropriate documentation. I may spend many days without visiting the workplace, but I never worried since I knew Jennifer could manage it. I trusted her so much that I had her draw out the checks to pay the subs or suppliers. All I had to do was come in on Friday and sign them, and she would make sure they were delivered. When I realized I needed assistance operating my company, I placed an ad in the local paper and began interviewing candidates. I was becoming dissatisfied with the responses and couldn't locate somebody with the credentials I believed were required to do the job. That is, until Jennifer applied for the position. I recall the day she stepped through the door. Even though I was married, I could identify a beautiful lady when I saw one. She was only 54 tall, but she had such gorgeous wide brown eyes and a charming button of a nose. I assessed her to be in her early 30s, and from what I could see, she definitely kept herself in shape. She wore a blue business suit that, while not exposing, did nothing to disguise her trim body. The interview went well, and I was impressed by her qualifications. She had worked for her father, who owned a construction company and was well versed in the business. When I asked why she no longer worked for him, she explained that her husband had been transferred here, so they had to move away. I also learned that she had a daughter the same age as my Emily, and now that she was in school, Jennifer wanted to return to the workforce. We reached an agreement. Don't get me wrong, nothing happened between the two of us, not even flirting on my part, because I was married and took my vow seriously, and even if I wasn't married, she was. I have a firm rule that I never mess with another man's woman, and it was obvious she loved her husband very much and wasn't the type of woman to mess around. I had told Jennifer about my marriage problems, and when I told her about Emily's nightmares, she immediately suggested that I put her in therapy. I quickly realized she was right, and together we found a therapist who was willing to work with us. I had chosen a female therapist because I thought it would put Emily at ease, as she had always been extremely shy around men she didn't know. I met with Dr. Bennett to tell. In the meantime, the day after I filed a missing persons report, the police sent over a female detective to speak with Emily. My daughter told them that the last time she saw her mother was Friday morning before she left for school, and that her mother appeared distracted, but Emily wasn't too concerned at the time. A week later, I was asked to come down to the station and meet with the detective I had first spoken with. He said their investigations had tracked her lover's credit card usage to 2 motels, and they had determined using pictures that the two were together of their own free will. They had apparently left the state, and because there was no evidence of foul play, the police were not going to pursue the case any further. Over the next 2 months, the therapy seemed to be working for my daughter, and I believe she finally understood that it was not her fault that her mother had left, but more importantly, that I would always be there for her. Her nightmares had subsided, and she no longer had to keep me in sight whenever we were together. Jennifer and her husband began inviting Emily and me to their house for barbecues. At first, I was hesitant to accept, but Jennifer convinced me that it would be good for Emily to spend time with her daughter doing normal girl things. I knew her husband, Ryan, from meeting him at different times, but I was a little concerned about how he would react to his wife inviting a man, even if it was her boss, into their home. I quickly discovered that my concerns were unfounded. Nicole had been gone for 2.5 months with no word from her, so I decided it was time to rid my bedroom of the last vestiges of her former presence. Although she had apparently packed a lot of her clothes and personal effects, she had still left stuff behind. I brought a couple of large garbage bags up and started going through her drawers, emptying out her belongings. In the last drawer, which was mostly sweaters, I found a small box tucked into the back. Being I wasn't naive about drugs in my younger days, before I married Emily's mother, I had done some experimenting myself, but I put that aside when I graduated college and got serious about life. I opened the vial and sniffed it before taking a little powder on my finger and tentatively tasting it. Cocaine. The only other thing in there was a CD. I turned on my computer and put in the disk to see if there was anything on it that I could access. I saw that it contained I had built the house we lived in, and the basement was set up with exercise equipment on one side, and the other was basically a game room with a pool table. The scene showed 4 couples sitting or standing, most with drinks in their hands, and 2 of those people were Nicole and her boss. I advanced the movie forward, and at this point, I saw people passing around joints while others were snorting lines of white powder off the glass. I have always had a strong sex drive and occasionally watched some adult content when my wife was not receptive to my advances. I know there are men out there who get off on seeing their wives with other men, but I'm not one of those. All I felt was a great upheaval in my stomach and I raced for the bathroom. I would like to say that I made it to the toilet, but alas, my vomit spewed forth across the floor. I did finish emptying my stomach in the toilet and then set the on my way out. I saw that the video was still playing on my computer, so I quickly turned it off without glancing at the screen, and I contacted Hannah after everything was cleaned up. Hi, Hannah. It's Daniel. Do you have time to talk? Daniel, Michael, and I always make time for you. What up? She answered. Well, I decided to get rid of some of Nicole's items that was taking up room, and in one of her drawers, I discovered a box containing narcotics and a CD. I was wondering whether I should contact the police and report the narcotics. Honestly, I don't think that's a smart idea. The narcotics are in your home, and if it comes down to it, it will be your word against hers as to who owns them. I really believe you would be better off getting rid of them. Wow, I didn't really consider that, I responded. What about the CD? I placed it on my computer, and there is a video showing her and her buddies consuming drugs and participating in group activities. That woman had an orgy in my basement. Oh God, Daniel, I apologize. I know you would not have wanted to witness that. However, since it was videotaped in your house, it may be used as acceptable evidence in court, particularly if the issue was custody. I would recommend that you keep it someplace safe in case it is required. That's exactly what I hoped you would say. I plan to do anything I can to keep her away from Emily. So, how are things really going? Ryan approached me on our fourth visit to their home when the girls were busy making lunch inside. I guess things are as well as could be expected when you find out your wife is into drugs and group activities, I informed her. What? Ryan seemed astonished as he said. I went on to tell him about the CD and pills I discovered. I suppose I never truly knew her. The lady I thought I married would never have done such a thing. You do not realize how fortunate you are to have a lady like Jennifer. Actually, I do. Every day, I thank my fortunate stars that she decided to love me. She's a beautiful lady and am aware that men have pursued her, but I've always trusted her to do the right thing. Now if I could just get her boss to stop hitting on her, Ryan added with a sly smile as I sipped my drink. I couldn't help but sputter, spewing my drink down my front, and swiveled my head to stare at him. Jesus, Ryan, you don't think I would ever make a pass at Jennifer, I coughed out. Then I saw the sparkle in his eyes and he broke out laughing. Relax, buddy. Jennifer tells me everything about your relationship. That's why she likes working for you so much. You treat her with the utmost respect, and she knows you'd never abuse her trust. I smiled back at him. Yeah, well, that's a rule I've always followed. I've never made a move for a married lady, and I won't make one if I know she has a partner. If you could separate a woman from the man she was with, how could you trust her not to do the same with the next person that came along? That's especially true now that it has occurred to me. One other thing that happened as a result of finding the disc was that at the meeting with the therapist following my discovery, Dr. Bennett could tell that something dramatic had happened. She asked to see me the following day without Emily. I must say, Dr. Bennett knew her business. It didn't take her long to ferret out of me what had happened, and the next thing I knew, I was having one-on-one sessions with her. It took a couple of months for her to help me realize after a year, Hannah filed my divorce petition, and there was no need to present the CD movie because Nicole's abandonment of her family and lack of contact with her daughter or me was sufficient justification for the court to grant the divorce and give me sole custody of my daughter. However, I kept the movie hidden away in case Nicole ever returned and filed for custody. Ryan, an avid cyclist who even rode in amateur races, suffered a deep thigh bruise during a race, but no one knew at the time that he had developed a blood clot, which later broke loose and lodged in his brain, causing a massive stroke. When it occurred, we were at work, and I was sitting in my office examining the blueprints for a new home I was getting ready to construct when the phone call came in. I heard Jennifer answer the phone, and then I heard her scream out. I hurried to her side, and she looked terrified as she glanced at me. It's Ryan, they've rushed him to the hospital, she blurted out as she up and grabbed her purse. She began running out of the office and I followed her. Come on, get in my truck, you'll drive, I shouted as I came up with her. She gave me a blank expression at first, then nodded and allowed me lead her. I placed her in the passenger seat and raced to get behind the wheel. She never said anything more for the remainder of the journey, except to inform me which hospital it was. I could see her quivering with concern whenever I looked over at her. When we arrived at the hospital, I pulled up in front of the emergency entrance and she jumped from the truck and rushed in. I quickly found a parking spot and ran back to the doors. When I went inside, I saw that Jennifer had already inquired about Ryan and she was clearly distraught. I went to her and she looked at me, telling me that the doctors were working on him but didn't know anything yet. I put my arm around her and led her over to the waiting area to sit with him. After a half hour, I realized it was almost time to pick up our daughters from school. Not wanting to leave Jennifer alone, I called Hannah and told her what was going on, asking if she could pick them up and bring them to the hospital. She assured me she would, and I then called the school to have the girls ready for pickup. Hannah called just before they arrived, and I told Jennifer they were here. I went out to meet them and asked Hannah to take Emily with her to keep Jennifer company while I talked with Anna. I took Anna to a quiet spot and gently told her that her father had been brought to the hospital and was in the emergency room with the doctors. I let her know that it was apparently serious, but we would have to wait to hear more from the doctors to know the extent. Anna tried to. I thanked Hannah for her assistance, and before she left, I vowed to contact her if we needed anything more. We sat in quiet for the next half hour, me clutching Emily and Jennifer holding Anna. Finally, a nurse came out, asked us to accompany her, and brought us to a private sitting room. A doctor soon joined us, and the news was grim. Ryan was still alive, but he was being maintained that way by life support. Jennifer dropped in tears and I held her in my arms as she grieved. We waited until Ryan was admitted to the ICU, and then Jennifer and Anna were permitted to visit him. After a while, Jennifer and Anna returned. "Daniel, could you please care after Anna for me?" Jennifer inquired whether I was going to remain here. Anna began to complain, so I knelt before her. "Sweetie, you need to be strong for your mother right now. You come home with Emily and me, and he'll pick you up in the morning. If something occurs, your mother will phone us, okay?" Anna nodded with tears in her eyes, embraced her mother, and walked to hold hands with Emily. I hugged Jennifer and urged her to phone me if anything changed and that I'd see her in the morning. That evening was difficult. Both girls ate little and said very little. I put them to bed and then went to bed myself, but sleep was difficult to find. The following morning, I awakened the girls and had to virtually force them to eat breakfast. When I informed Emily I was going to drop her off at school, she nearly had a tantrum, so I pulled her aside and away from Anna. "Honey, please listen to me right now. Anna has to be with her mother, and there will come a moment when she will need you, okay?" "All right, Dad." "I understand," she murmured, but it was evident she wasn't pleased. "That's my girl," I added, hugging her. After leaving Emily off, I brought Anna to her home, where she used her key to get us in, and I asked her to pack her mother some new clothing and anything else she thought her mother would need. When we arrived to Ryan's room, we saw Jennifer sleeping in a chair by his bed. I placed down the overnight bag we had packed, and Anna returned to the waiting area to let her mother to sleep. About an hour and a half later, a haggard-looking Jennifer came out searching for us, and Anna and I embraced her before leading her to the cafeteria and buying her some breakfast. It took some persuading to get her to eat, but her lack of appetite was understood. When she was done, I went to the nurse's station on the floor and asked if there was any place Jennifer could wash and change. The nurse, who was sympathetic given the circumstances, took her to the locker room, and Jennifer returned looking a little better. The remainder of the day was spent with Jennifer and Anna taking turns sitting with Ryan, while I sat in the waiting room, comforting Anna when she wasn't in there. The doctors returned in the afternoon to do another battery of tests, and the prognosis was not good. When school let out, I went to pick up Emily and we returned to the hospital until late evening, when I took the girls home. It was 5:30 in the morning when my phone rang, and I knew what it was before I even answered it. Jennifer's voice, strained with sorrow, said, "Daniel, Ryan passed away." The pain in her voice was palpable, and I could only tell her that I was sorry and that the girls and I would be there as soon as possible. I quickly dressed and made my way to Emily's bedroom, where the girls were sleeping. I gently woke Emily, putting a finger to my lips before she could speak, and beckoned her to follow me. I whispered in the hallway, "Honey, Anna's dad passed away, and Jennifer needs us there now. I need you to help Anna get ready. She's going to need your support." Emily's eyes welled up with tears, but she nodded and accepted the burden. "I'll help her, Dad." I immediately went to wake Anna, and as painful as it was, I gently delivered her the news. She burst into tears, and I held her in my arms for some minutes. With Emily's aid, she was quickly dressed, and we were on our way to the hospital. When we arrived, it was sad to see mother and daughter in a tight hug, sharing their loss. Emily clutched to me, weeping, and she, too, understood what it was like to lose a parent. After some time, I left the girls with Jennifer and Anna and went to find the hospital administrators to inform them that a funeral home would contact them as soon as Jennifer and Anna had chosen one. Then, I gently led Jennifer and Anna out to the car and drove them home, where I settled them into the den and asked Jennifer what phone calls needed to be made. She gave me a list, which included her parents and Ryan's brother. Ryan's parents, like mine, had already passed away. I also called Michael and Hannah. Jennifer and Ryan had chosen Hannah as their family lawyer at my recommendation, and they both came over right away. Hannah stayed with Jennifer while I made the phone calls, including arranging with a funeral home to take charge of Ryan's remains. The toll of her loss and the lack of sleep eventually overcame Jennifer, and she was put to bed with Hannah's help. Afterward, I spoke with Hannah, who told me she would handle the estate matters pro bono and that she had a copy of Ryan's will. She also informed me that Ryan had purchased 2 burial plots for himself and Jennifer. I thanked Michael and Hannah for their assistance, and after they left, I set about preparing lunch for the girls. The rest of the day was quiet, punctuated by bouts of tears from both Anna and Emily. The emotional toll soon overcame both girls, and as soon as dinner was over, they turned in. Anna didn't want to sleep alone, so once again, both girls slept in the same bed. I decided to stay in the guest room, and after I had locked up for the night, I, too, felt the drain of energy and went to bed, exhausted. I slept through the night. I awakened at 6 a.m. and hurriedly changed, but as I exited my room, the aroma of coffee met me. I proceeded to the kitchen and saw Jennifer sitting at the table, her face lined with tiredness and despair. "Steve, I didn't realize you were still here," she whispered quietly. "Well, Anna wanted Emily to stay with her, so I decided to stay in your guest room, just in case," I said quietly. Jennifer gave me a thankful grin and nodded, understanding without words, as I informed her of the funeral home's preparations and that I would pick up her parents at the airport as they were coming in that day. She thanked me for all I had done. When our daughters arrived, I told Jennifer to stay seated while I prepared breakfast for everyone. After cleaning the kitchen, it was time for me to leave for the airport, where I arrived early enough to meet Jennifer's parents, whom I recognized from previous photos. "Mr. and Mrs. Hanley," in Daniel Cohen, Jennifer's friend, I said, reaching out my hand. "It's nice to meet you, Daniel. Please call me Dan, and this is my wife, Eleanor," Jennifer's father said, shaking my hand. "I feel as if I almost know you. Our daughter often speaks of you very highly." "The feelings are mutual," then, I corrected. "I couldn't accomplish what I do without her help. Both she and Ryan have become dear friends. I just wish we were meeting under better circumstances." Eleanor hugged me, her eyes welling up with tears, and I instantly liked them both. We gathered their luggage, loaded it into the car, and drove them to Jennifer's house. It was a bittersweet reunion, and more tears were shed. Emily and I stayed for lunch, offering any assistance we could, before leaving. Ryan's funeral was held the following Monday, and Ryan's brother, as well as many of Ryan's friends, who had been well liked for his easygoing ways and quick wit, were there. I was also pleased to see that many of the subcontractors who had worked for me over the years and knew Jennifer came to pay their respects. Jennifer's parents stayed for another 2 days, and on Wednesday, they invited Emily and me over for lunch. After lunch, the adults walked into the living room, while Emily and Anna retired to Anna's room, and the discussion remained light until Eleanor spoke. "Honey, do you know what your plans are now?" Jennifer was asking her. "You know we would love to have you and Anna move back home." "I know, Mom. You and Dad have always been there to support me, and I love you for that. But this has all been so sudden that Anna and I are going to need some time to decide what to do next," Jennifer told me. "As soon as we know, we'll let you know." Until then, I hadn't considered the notion of Jennifer moving away. The abrupt realization left me with an empty sensation in the pit of my stomach, but as her friend, I would support any decision she made. I stayed until a little after 5 p.m. and Jennifer asked me some questions. "I know you need time to mourn and to think about your life now. I want you to take all the time you need. Don't worry about work, and if you do decide to move back with your parents, I want you to know I'll support your decision. You have to do what's best for you and Anna now. In the meantime, if you need anything at all, please call. I'll always be here for you." Jennifer shed tears and hugged me. "Thank you, Daniel. I don't think I would have made it this far without you." Her father followed Emily and me outside to the vehicle and shook my hand again. "Daniel, Jennifer has told us how much you've done for her and Anna through all of this. I want you to know how much Eleanor and I appreciate it. I shudder to think how much worse it would have been without your support." I gave him a firm hug. "Dan, it's the least I could do. She, Ryan, and Anna were there for me and Emily after my wife left and abandoned our daughter. It was their love that really brought Emily out of her depression. As long as Jennifer remains here, you can rely on me to look after them the best I can." Emily and I stopped by on a regular basis for the next 2 weeks to check on Jennifer and Anna. She never mentioned whether she had decided what she wanted to do with her future, and I was content not to pry, giving her the time she needed. Anna stayed at home with her mother for the first week after the funeral before returning to school. On Monday, a week later, I noticed her vehicle parked outside the office when I arrived for the day, and when I stepped in, she was seated at her desk, so I knew she had made a choice. I simply stood there, staring at her, waiting for her to speak. "Well, boss, are you going to show me everything you messed up over the last couple of weeks so I can fix it?" she inquired with a smile. "Does this mean?" "Yes," she said with a wink. "It means we're staying. This is Anna's home, and all her friends are here. Moving would only make this harder for her. Besides, we both know you need me to keep your business running." I expelled a large breath that I hadn't known I was holding. "You sure know how to butter up your boss," I added with a broad smile. With things sorted, I brought her up on the happenings of the previous 2 weeks, and she threw me out of the office, ordering me to keep an eye on the subcontractors. I don't believe the grin left my face the whole day. Over the next year, we spent almost every weekend together because of our daughter's friendship. Jennifer and I went to the girls' sporting events and other school activities together, and when they didn't have events, the girls would usually come to my house, and I always made sure Jennifer joined us because I didn't want her sitting around feeling down. Our friendship grew closer, to the point where there was nothing we couldn't talk about. Jennifer became a mother figure for Emily, who had been missing one, and Anna came to see me as a father figure. However, whenever I tried to be the disciplinarian, the girls would laugh, and Jennifer would have to step in. Both girls knew they had me wrapped around their fingers, but they were good kids, so we rarely denied them anything. On a Saturday, a little more than a year after Ryan's death, I had run over to one of the houses I had under construction to handle a small crisis. When I got back home, I saw Jennifer's car in the driveway. We had planned a barbecue and a day of lounging by the pool. As I came into the house, I heard the girls laughing and giggling outside, so I went to the laundry room to grab my swim trunks, which I had left to dry. Normally, I'd change in my bedroom, but today with my swimsuit in hand, I opened the door to the bathroom and stopped dead in my tracks. Standing in front of me was Jennifer, reaching for her bikini top while wearing only a skimpy pair of bikini bottoms. I stood there for a few seconds, frozen. I'd seen her in a swimsuit before, but never like this. Jennifer gasped, putting her arms over her chest, and I blurted, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I hurriedly turned and slammed the door behind me, racing to the living room, my cheeks heated and agitated. I prayed I hadn't lost our relationship or humiliated her. After approximately 10 minutes, Jennifer emerged, now clothed in her bikini, and she could see how humiliated I looked. "Daniel, I'm really sorry. I heard the girls outside and thought you were out there with them," I responded quickly, still apologizing. She stepped over, touched my face, and said, "Daniel, I know you'd never do that intentionally. Don't worry about it. Now go get changed and put the chicken on the grill. I'm hungry." She attempted to seem serious, but it only lasted a second before she broke out laughing. I stood there, watching her walk away, letting out a sigh of relief that she wasn't mad, and I quickly changed and did as she asked. When I went outside, Jennifer was sipping some wine while the girls splashed around in the pool, and I tried not to think about her in the bathroom while grilling, but it was difficult. After we ate, we leaned back in reclining chairs, enjoying the sun, and our talk was light and casual, just like usual. But during a gap in the discussion, Jennifer flashed me a smile, and I felt my face warm, as she plainly recalled what had transpired earlier. As the sun began to set, the girls announced that they were going to Anna's for a sleepover. They gathered their belongings, and as they walked to the car, Jennifer approached me and kissed my cheek with a sly smile. "Thanks for today, Daniel. See you tomorrow," she said with a grin. I watched them leave, feeling both relieved and perplexed about my own reaction. Later that night, as I lay in bed, my mind wandered back to the moment I walked in on her. It was the first time since my divorce that I'd felt that kind of attraction to someone, and it left me feeling both excited and uncertain. Jennifer was my friend, and I didn't want to ruin that. The following week at work was a bit strange for me. I found myself staring at her more often, admiring her without even realizing it, and my feelings left me confused. I hadn't thought about being with anyone in a long time, and Jennifer wasn't just anyone, she was my close friend and a big part of Emily's life. The following Saturday, Jennifer and I dropped the girls off at a week-long sleepaway sports camp for girls. That evening, the local Builders Association, of which I was a member, was having their annual awards dinner, and Jennifer was going as my guest. After the girls were settled in at camp, I dropped Jennifer off at her house, told her I'd pick her up at 6, and went back home to get ready. I spent the afternoon trying to distract myself by doing a bit of gardening till I knocked on Jennifer's door at 6 p.m., and when she answered it, my mouth fell. She was dressed in a basic but attractive black dress with a pearl necklace and black shoes, which was not exposing but looked gorgeous on her. "Wow, you look amazing," I murmured, unable to stop gazing. "Thank you, kind sir," she added with a grin, evidently delighted by my response. Despite the temptation to keep stealing glances, I kept my eyes on the road as we drove. Our conversation was light, as usual, and it helped calm my nerves. When we arrived at the venue, we joined a table with a few other builders and their spouses, and the main topic of conversation was, of course, business. Jennifer sprang up, applauding and yelling, visibly overjoyed, as my name was read out for the Quality of Product Award. The dinner was unexpectedly wonderful, and then the awards ceremony started. I concluded my statement with the following: thank you to the association for this honor, but most of all, I want to thank Jennifer. This award belongs to her as much as it does to me. If it weren't for her keeping everything organized and on track, I wouldn't be up here today. When I returned to the table, Jennifer was standing there with tears in her eyes, hugging me tightly before surprising me with a brief kiss on the lips. It wasn't romantic, but it shot a thrill through me and gave me a rush of excitement. After the awards ceremony, the dance floor was cleared, and music started to play. I accepted compliments from numerous colleagues before turning to Jennifer and asking, "Would you like to dance?" I wasn't much of a dancer, but Jennifer moved with such ease and elegance that I couldn't help but watch her. She smiled and grabbed my hand and led me to the dance floor. The first song was energetic. The next song was slow, and I was about to lead her back to our table, but she wrapped her arms around my neck and moved in close. I hesitated, but put my arms around her waist, and we began to sway to the music. It had been years since I'd held a woman, and holding Jennifer in my arms had an immediate effect on me. I could feel myself becoming flustered, hoping she hadn't noticed. When the song ended, I let her lead me back to the table, happy for the opportunity to relax. Jennifer drank her glass of wine, then leaned over and said, "Daniel, I think a perfect way to end this evening would be to go back to your house and soak in the hot tub." I didn't want the night to end, so the offer delighted me. "Sounds like a great idea," I agreed, and we returned to my apartment. As we traveled, we chatted about the award and how it may help the company. Because I had a smart home setup, I used my phone to turn on the hot tub so it would be ready when we arrived. When we arrived at the home, I retrieved our swimwear. Jennifer and Anna often used the pool at my house, so they kept some of their belongings here. She went to the bathroom to change, while I quickly changed in the laundry room, grabbed a bottle of wine and 2 glasses to bring outside. I was pleased I was already in the tub, since the sight of Jennifer strolling out in her bikini stole my breath away. She slipped into the water and accepted the glass of wine I offered her. For the first 10 minutes, we simply soaked in peace, letting the warm water soothe us. Jennifer broke the pause, staring at me closely. "Daniel, it's been over 2 years since Nicole left. Have you thought about having a woman in your life again?" Honestly, until recently, I hadn't really thought about it. I guess I was still a bit raw from everything. I felt my cheeks heat up at her inquiry. "You said until recently, has something changed?" she said, amused. I stumbled over my words. I guess maybe seeing you." A wicked grin formed over her lips. She laid her drink down, reached behind her back, and before I knew it, her bikini top floated to the surface. My jaw dropped wide as she lifted slightly, her eyes focused on mine. She muttered, "Was it seeing me like this?" I felt my pulse accelerate and murmured back, "Yes, oh, Jennifer." She slipped over to me, opening her legs and straddling my lap, her arms wrapping around my neck. As we engaged in a long, passionate kiss, my hands reflexively traveled to her waist, and all the sensations I'd been fighting for the last year flooded to the surface. That night, Jennifer and I enjoyed an intimacy that was beyond anything I had ever felt. We had both been through sorrow, yet we found solace and passion in one another's embrace. The next morning, I awoke with her alongside me, her head resting on my shoulder. "Good morning, beautiful," I greeted quietly. She grinned and drew closer. "Good morning, handsome." The night we spent together seemed natural, and when we awoke to begin the day, everything felt perfect. Jennifer and I spent the following 2 weeks enjoying each other's company and finally dealing with the sentiments we both had. When it was time to pick up the girls from camp, we knew we needed to talk to them about our relationship and see how they felt. We picked up the girls together, and they seemed ecstatic to see us both. The car ride home was filled with stories about their camp experiences, and the girls were so full of energy that Jennifer and I decided to wait until we were all BA. When we arrived, the girls were still buzzing with enthusiasm, scarcely stopping to unload their luggage before hurrying to tell us more about camp. After they had settled down a little, Jennifer and I exchanged smiles, and I softly cleared my throat to catch their attention. "Emily, Anna," I said, "Jennifer and I have something we'd like to talk to you about." Jennifer stretched for my hand, and I felt soothed by her contact. "We've spent a lot of time together as a family over the past year," Jennifer said, beaming warmly at the girls. "We've come to realize that we care for each other very deeply. Daniel and I were in love." Emily and Anna exchanged glances before turning to face us, smiling. "So you're going to be, like, boyfriend and girlfriend?" Anna inquired, smiling. "Something like that," I joked. "We're going to take things one step at a time, but we wanted to make sure you both were okay with it. This would mean Jennifer and Anna might eventually move in with us permanently." Emily shouted and embraced Anna, and they both rushed at Jennifer and me. "Oh my gosh, that would be amazing," said Emily. "I mean, Anna and I are practically sisters already." Anna agreed, beaming. "I love that idea. And I already think of you as my dad, Daniel." Hearing her say that brought tears to my eyes, so I drew her into a close embrace. "Anna, it would be an honor." That night, our newly blended family celebrated by ordering pizza and watching movies together, filling the home with laughter and pleasure. I couldn't have been happier, as it seemed like everything was finally fitting into place. Jennifer and Anna gradually moved into our home over the next few months, and we took the time to rearrange the house so that everyone had their own space and a say in how things were organized. Jennifer put her house on the market, and it sold quickly, leaving us with a nice nest egg for the girls' college funds. Life settled into a new routine that felt effortless and right. Jennifer and I balanced our work and family lives, supporting each other through the ups and downs of parenting two teenage girls. Emily and Anna became inseparable, sharing everything from school projects to inside jokes. It was clear that they were not only best friends, but sisters in every way that mattered. One evening, about 6 months after Jennifer and Anna had officially moved in, I decided to make everything official. I took Jennifer out for a quiet dinner, just the two of us, and as we walked along the pier after dinner, with the city lights reflecting off the water, I stopped and took her hands in mine. "Jennifer, you've brought so much light into my life. You're not only my best friend but also my partner, and I can't imagine my life without you by my side. Will you marry me?" Jennifer's eyes welled up with tears and she nodded, muttering, "Yes, Daniel, yes." We hugged and kissed, realizing that this moment was as important to us as it was to our two girls who had brought us together. We planned a simple, intimate wedding with just our closest friends and family. Emily was my proud flower girl, and Anna stood by Jennifer's side as her maid of honor. Hannah and Michael were there to celebrate with us, as well as a few of my trusted subcontractors and their spouses who had known us both for years. The day was filled with love, laughter, and new beginnings. We honeymooned in Fiji, where we found the perfect balance of relaxation and adventure, exploring the islands by day and basking in each other's company by night. When we returned home, the girls had made a surprise welcome home banner with flowers from the garden, and we celebrated with them, sharing travel stories and lots of hugs. From that day forward, we embraced life as a complete family. Jennifer and I made it a point to support the girls in any way we could, attending every school event and guiding them through the difficulties of adolescence. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day, and Emily and Anna eventually began calling me Dad and Jennifer Mom without hesitation. A year later, we commemorated our first anniversary as a family by taking the girls to the same location where I had proposed to Jennifer, sharing stories and reminiscing about our journey. Life had not always been easy, but we had found each other, and from the ashes of loss and heartbreak, we had built a new beginning, filled with love and family. As I glanced about at the three most important people in my life, I realized we had something genuinely unique, something that would last a lifetime. Thank you for watching. Do you believe in second chances? Please let us know, and remember to like and subscribe.